Welcome. My name is Kelly Pruitt. I'm on the MeOTA board. I'm the Central Maine Regional Representative. And I'm going to do introduction and then get session 2 started with our presenter. Come on in. Yeah. Susan Roberts practiced occupational therapy for over 4 decades in many areas, including mental health, physical dysfunction, pediatrics, school-based, and geriatrics. She concurrently studied a variety of Indigenous healing practices, independently and formally, receiving a Master's of Divinity degree from Harvard University. For the past decade, she has studied Qigong and traditional Chinese medicine with Dr. Nan Liu. Movement in the context of activity has been in continuous use for 3 decades and translated into several languages. Her most recent book, Sustainable Health: Simple Practices to Transform Your Life, focuses on occupations through the lens of traditional Chinese medicine. Please welcome Susan.
All right, these are the books there. So welcome. I've already broken many computers here. So hopefully we'll go, we've gotten that all out of the way. Not physically broken them, but so we'll see how it goes. Welcome. Happy to see everybody here. You know a little bit about me. We only have an hour. I'm used to teaching in 6 to 12-hour blocks. So I've condensed this into 1 hour. So it's going to be a really quick overview. How many people here are already doing some kind of traditional Chinese medicine or Ayurvedic or some other kind of energy medicine practice, whether it's Reiki, whatever it is? Anybody who does Reiki? Okay, acupuncture, yoga, people doing yoga, a lot of yoga. Got anybody? Let's see what else am I seeing commonly in the literature. But anyhow, all of these have in common this understanding of that energetic is without technology. So these are indigenous practices without technology, without fossil fuels, without any of that stuff, heavy metals, rare metals, have managed to create health in their populations for thousands of years. Traditional Chinese medicine and Ayurvedic medicine. So if you know Qigong or acupuncture, those are all pieces of traditional Chinese medicine. And if you know yoga, that's a piece of Ayurvedic medicine, but they are pieces. Okay, so if we took antibiotics, which is a piece of conventional medicine, and we walked into the jungle and we handed it to a shaman in the jungle and said, if they have a fever, give them this. A lot of times it would work, but they have to have no knowledge of germ theory or any of that. It's going to work no matter what. The same thing is true with things like acupuncture. It works on dogs and horses. You know, they don't know that, you know, that has nothing to do with that. It's an understanding, and 5,000 years of study. Both Ayurvedic and traditional Chinese medicine have 5,000 years of unbroken practice, and they began writing down what they did approximately 2,000 to 3,000 years ago. If you're familiar or heard anything about like some of the ayahuasca kinds of, that's like a piece of the indigenous South American healing traditions. And they also wrote things down, but most of that was destroyed by the Spaniards when they came through and conquered. So we have, lots of oral tradition, but this is, these are practices that work. And what I found for me as an occupational therapist, let's see if we can get this to switch to the next slide. Plus I'm on a Mac. Okay. And haven't been on a Mac in decades. Okay, so Anyhow, so for me as an occupational therapist, I found it really helpful because what I found was I started looking at indigenous practices when I moved to Tucson, Arizona in the 70s, late 70s, and became familiar with medicine wheels. And since then, I've been obsessed with compasses. I've been making compasses and trying to get, OT and compasses and stuff. So this is the latest iteration, and it was very helpful for me to study with Dr. Nan Liu in New York, because he taught 5-element theory, which is the underlying theory behind traditional Chinese medicine. So it has a lot of time-tested data, and I felt pretty confident about how to organize the compass itself. So our occupations that, when we focus on occupations, we're all over the map, like people, say, oh, I've had OT before. You're the people that, well, in my day, you're the people that make tile trivets, because that's what we did in mental health, and somebody else says, oh, you're the OT. Yeah, you helped my grandma get in and out of the bathtub. But, it's hard to explain to people what is in common. We all struggle with this. It's sort of one of the, when you try to be all things to all people, it's very hard to explain who you are. But I started looking at the occupations of that correlated with elements in the traditional Chinese medicine wheel, or healing compass, as I call it. All of them play a huge role in our epigenetics, our immune system, our health, as we all know. So I took these things, and in the book, I have a lot of research that supports how they act on the nervous system, the immune system, the epigenetics, all that kind of stuff. And I'm not going to go into that today. So, and probably most of you have read articles and stuff like that. So, but these are the 5 occupations. Eating builds the body with nutrition, and also the fact that we share meals is very important for social bonding and that kind of thing. Play relieves stress like nothing else. And when I talk about play, I'm talking about the power of fun kind of play, which involves flow, connection, and playfulness, a not seriousness. And there's a wonderful book, The Power of Fun. And was anybody in that reading group here? There was a reading. Yeah, it's a great book. Anyhow, sleeping is both restorative to the body and to the psyche, or the spirit, because of the dreaming. So dreaming acts as restoration as well. Working, especially when you're talking about meaningful work, our ability to share a skill is also can be very healing. And loving boosts our immune system. It creates community. And one of the things that I thought was really, from all the research that I'd done and all the reading I'd done, found really sad about the pandemic, because just when you need to boost the immune system, we're telling everybody to stand 6 feet apart, and you have to get closer to really trigger the oxytocin that really does that. So let's see. So I'm going to start by trying it on yourself. And this is, I'm going to show you, God willing, I'm going to show you a technology willing. I'm going to show you a video from Dr. Stephen Cowan. He is a pediatrician. He specialized in working with kids with autism and ADHD. And then he took that when he turned 60, and in traditional Chinese medicine, when you turn 60, you get a reset. And so he took his reset, left his practice, and began doing, creating this Turn Us All Kids, which is an online program to help people work with their kids. And he wrote a book called Fire Child, Water Child: How Understanding the 5 Types of ADHD Can Help You Improve Your Child's Self-Esteem and Attention, which I highly recommend. And now let's see if this works. Let's see. I think I have to go on Chrome. Right?
Don't mind me, I'm just fan away.
Okay, thank you. Bless you, Vanna.
Don't bless me yet. It didn't work yet.
Ah, that's it. We just need to make the screen big. It's not showing on the Zoom.
Is this it? Is this the
No,
video?
that's not it.
Cool.
It's up further in the, if you like scroll up, it should be on this. This is the website, it's just not the right video. That's the video. But it's not on the screen. And there's no audio.
Cool.
We tried fixing this beforehand.
We've tried fixing many a thing today.
It's really a cool
Yeah.
video and I really hope I can show it to you, but I don't
Thanks.
know
You can just
how.
put it down in the hallway. I'll grab it in a minute. Thank you.
I don't know how to.
Looks like we're not getting it.
Did we try it on the slideshow? No. Try it on the slideshow one more time. So one more screen. One more screen. See if you click on play, it'll play. That would be like a miracle.
Big money, no whammies. Can you describe it for us?
Can we just go on Chrome? Oh, we can get it on Chrome, but we can't play it on Zoom. That's
It
the
doesn't seem to
problem.
want to even play on Chrome, actually. We're just playing it. It's not.
Oh, we didn't have sound though.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I'll give it to you on your own. I just like to have action, you know, I like to have people like engaged and active, and so you're not just listening to me drone on and on. So it's like, oh, this is so cool. I'll everybody try and figure out what their secret power is. But I can't reproduce what Stephen put together from memory. Even though I've listened to it twice in the last few days, and millions of times every time I present. Yeah, but we're not getting, that's it, but
But can we hear it? No. It's asking for too much today.
well, let me do the narration.
Okay.
Okay, so every child has a secret power. And when you use your secret power, you turn into a hero. And nature shows us how each season has its own unique secret power. There's spring and summer and harvest and autumn and winter and spring. That's wood energy. Spring energy is just active and upward motion, and the birds come out and the leaves come out, and it's just amazing what happens. And that is wood power. And the child with wood power, when he or she turns into a hero, they are very active and they're running around and they're doing stuff and they're looking for challenges. They love to win. They like danger. They're risk takers. And when they grow their power and become a hero, they become a brave leader. They encourage others to reach their goals. This is called grit. But if that child becomes stressed and angry, intense, impatient, they blame others, they're pushy, they want to win at all costs. Summer, when summer comes, oh, it's just so nice. We like to lay out in the sun and yeah, we don't have to do anything and we can just enjoy. And the child who has summer as their secret power, or fire power as their secret power, is naturally funny, intuitive. They learn by feeling. They're excited about everything. And they're naturally, and when they grow their power, they turn into their superpower. They get others excited. They inspire other people. This is called zest. But if the fire child gets stressed, they get too excited, they get silly, overwhelmed, panic, there's too much drama. Then there's harvest, which is now fall season. And in the fall, the fruits grow, or no, summer, we just, yeah, finishing up with that harvest season. That's earth power. And there's a lot of work involved, but we see connections. The earth child sees connections. They love everyone getting along together. They want to do what they can to be part of the team. And when that child grows up, they become a peacemaker. And that is called empathy. But if the earth child gets stressed, too much going on, they care too much, they worry about everything and everyone, and they can't make decisions. And they have trouble sleeping. And then we come to winter. Oh, autumn, sorry, spring, autumn. Autumn is when, that's where we are now. And the leaves turn gold and the birds fly south and the leaves let go. It's a season for letting go. That's called gold power. And the child with gold power sees details. They learn by patterns. They love to create rhythm and beauty in the world. And when they grow their power and grow into a hero, they are able to create beauty in the world. Architects, this is called grace. But if the metal child, this is the metal child, gold child, gets stressed, their thoughts get stuck. They get annoyed, inflexible, wrong, everything, worry about being wrong. And then there's winter. And winter, everything gets cold. You know about that in Maine. Everything gets snow. This is water power. And water power, when the child with water power dreams big. They're a dreamer, inventor, a poet, a philosopher. They listen deeply for meanings. And this is called insight when they grow their power. But when they get stressed, they turn inward. They shut down, they hide. They don't share with anyone, and they get bogged down in details. So what's your secret power? Once you know it, we'll help you grow it. And that's this Turn Us All Kids. This is Dr. Cowan's stuff. So now, how do I get out of this? Let's try escape. Yeah, now I need to get back to my slideshow. So what about, so did anybody see, how many people here work with kids and work with kids on the spectrum and ADHD and stuff? So what I love about this is it's all positive. And how did anybody see themselves in any of those kids? And I definitely recommend that you watch the video because you didn't write it all down. So it's really well done. Does anybody want to share anything about that while we're getting the slideshow back up?
Friend who's had ADHD and I wish that audio version of the book.
This
There's a resource you mentioned because she has a learning disability reading disability.
well, the Turn Us All Kids is actually the best place to go. And I think there's a lot for free on Turn Us All Kids, a lot for free. And that's where this video is. And they have a test that you can take, an assessment. He's got a lot for free on there. And then there's also a subscription and they teach, it's basically teaching you how to grow your child's power. And in the book, he talks about the book, maybe on audio, I don't know. But the book also talks about parents, so what if you're a fire parent and you have a water child, they're going to be trying to put your fire out all the time. And it's going to, how do you cope with that? Yeah. Yes. No, well, he came up with it himself, but he studied traditional Chinese medicine in China. He uses traditional Chinese used traditional Chinese medicine in his practice in terms of using the herbs and the acupuncture, which is what we, mostly think of when we're talking about doctors, Oriental medicine doctors, or MDs who've studied traditional Chinese medicine. And they, he's studied that for years and years, and he's incorporated it in his practice. And I've heard it. I've had the pleasure to hear him lecture a number of times at conferences and stuff. If you ever see his name, jump on it. I mean, he talks about the developmental reflexes. I don't know if anybody ever, we had to read Mary Fiorentino's book when I went to OT school back when Jesus was a little baby. And anyhow, so we did that, and he did a whole thing about the meridians. He does a whole thing about the vagal nerve, and I mean, he's amazing. He's taken this stuff and done some pretty amazing things with it. I'm trying to make my notes get smaller. Oh, I can do that. That's good. All right, so you got to start with a compass. So I'm changing up some of the slides from what you got on your handout, but all the handouts are the same. And hopefully you've got, or will be able to get later, a handout. There's a 5 healing occupations compass. You've got one right in front of you on that piece of paper there. But everybody else, hopefully you've got a handout or you can get one. Otherwise, I'm going to go through it. But this is the compass, and this is what I call the OT compass. But I want to start by marinating you in just a little bit of science, a little bit of quantum physics, so that you have an understanding. So these are what I call the 4 or the 5 elements of traditional not traditional Chinese medicine. These are the 5 elements of contemporary science.
Can you click on the blue button?
Maybe. No.
Just go away.
I know, but yeah. I am on 2 screens, unfortunately. Me too. I love technology, and I hate it. There we go. They got it? Got it. Okay. So we've got it's working okay, but there's a box I don't want to see. It's okay now. Okay. So elements of contemporary science. So we talk about matter, energy, time, and space. Those are like the 4 elements or 5 elements of modern science. So matter is what we've been focused on. We want to see it and touch it and feel it and measure it and all of that kind of stuff. But as we've gotten more involved with quantum physics, what we found is that it's more about energy and less about matter. That matter is actually kind of a concept, actually, as it turns out. So Newton, about 350 years ago, came up with a formula: force equals mass times acceleration. So force is energy and mass is matter, and acceleration is time and space, miles per hour or whatever. And Einstein pointed out time and space cannot be separated. So that formula was very useful. And I know when I started teaching kinesiology, I was like, duh, like, of course, if I let go of this, I mean, where's it going to go? It's not going to go up or sideways, right? It's going to go straight down. It's such a duh. I could not wrap my mind around the, Newton's laws, because they just seem like so duh to me. They debated it when they debated it. It was a cause of debate. It took about 100 years for people to really accept the fact that if I let go of this glass, it's going to go down no matter what. We are about 100 years now into Einstein's, and Einstein linked energy and mass. There's an equal sign right there. Energy and matter. Energy and matter traveling at the speed of light squared, which is a constant. It's kind of the constant of the Big Bang. And Einstein, who probably had ADHD himself, had a tenuous relationship with time. He understood that time was relative. And anybody with ADHD in the room can tell you who can keep track of time. Time is relative. You know, oh, is it today? Is it tomorrow? Oh, it doesn't matter. Well, so energy equals mass. So this is, and this formula here is really what traditional healers do. So if you go to the doctor and you have a million tests, right, and nothing comes out and they say we can't find anything, that's really good news, because that means it hasn't shifted to this side of the equation. If you've got a really good practitioner and you go in with a tumor or you go in with something, they can sometimes push it to the other side, or you can learn practices that push it to the other side. But energy equals matter. And that's the gift that we got from Einstein. And that is how our science has caught up to indigenous practices. And now, back in the day, only really adept practitioners could actually see energy, but we have technology now and we can see energy. So here's the cortex, the corpus callosum, the brainstem, some of the cranial nerves coming out there. We can see that on imaging now. All of us can see it. We have the technology to enable us to do that. So as I said before, you have to start with the compass. How can you use this in practice? Well, we are not going to be treating in the same way that a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner, but we already have a lot of tools in our toolbox. And one of them is understanding and evaluating something like discriminative senses. So in traditional Chinese medicine, this would be how they would organize that. So wood energy is connected to vision. Water energy is connected to hearing. Metal energy, the gold energy is smell. The earth energy is the lips. So touch, you know how babies, like they have to put everything in their mouth. This is a really important place for learning and touch. Taste, the tongue is associated with the heart and associated with fire energy. So this is where the discriminative senses fall. These are all things that we would do in an evaluation. There are in addition to the senses and the sense organs, we have the proprioceptive senses. And so the tendons have Golgi tendon organs, which allow us to release and let go, which is a really important part of wood energy. Our pain and temperature is really sensed through our joints. And, you know, this is where you feel that water. You've got, most of our joints have water in them. That's where we're going to be feeling that pain and temperature. Changes are going to affect that. Our metal energy is light touch, proprioceptive. So when I was in OT school, I learned that we have our sense of where our joints are comes from inside the joints, but there's not really any sensory organs in there. It's the pain and temperature organs. The way we know how to move comes from the light touch from the skin sensors. So we have so many different sensors, and that's really where our coordination comes from. In the center, we have the muscles, and we have the muscle spindles, which enable us to sense gravity and the pull on the muscles. So we all know that, you know, those flexor muscles are the ones that tend to tighten up oftentimes. That's a response to gravity. So that gravity response, and we also, the other thing is when you go into a bar or somewhere where they give you a beverage and you've ordered it, and it comes to you in a real pretty clear mug, and you assume that it's glass, but you lift it and you go like this because all of your muscles already know how much that glass weighs. And you didn't figure on it being plastic. So that is that sensory piece. And then the pulse and blood pressure is that fire energy. So proprioceptive senses, that falls in our scope of practice. Emotions, every one of these sensory organs is also associated with emotions. So wood energy tends to be anger and stress when it's unbalanced. Water energy tends to be fear, sometimes shame. I think shame, I've put shame with fear simply because if you're shamed, you're going to be pushed out of the group. And if you are living as people have lived for most of our time on this planet, if you're pushed out of the group, it's probably a death sentence. You know, you're not going to survive without the community. Grief and depression associate with the metal energy. Joy associates with the heart or fire energy, which sounds really good, except we all know that if you have too much joy, yet you can end up being manic, and that can be a problem. And then in the center, we have earth energy, anxiety, and guilt, which mediates all those other emotions. So we work with those. Those are all things that we work with. We also work with the vestibular system and movement. So of course, the vestibular system is deep within the inner ear. So I could just put all the vestibular in with water energy, but it just is too complex, I think. So wood energy is that upward push that we get in the spring. So vertical movement is wood energy. Everything else that I told you up to now was all traditional Chinese medicine. I didn't make anything up. This I made up. Okay, just so you know. My wife's always telling me, you make shit up. You make stuff up. And I do, but I have good reason. Water energy, you know, is that rocking, oscillating movement, rocking and swinging. Wood, metal energy, crystalline kinds of stuff, that's linear kinds of stuff going on. And then balance in the center is that gravity and that pull of gravity on the otoliths in the ear. And spinning is also associated with the blood because the blood travels in a circular motion through the blood vessels. I'm so happy to find that in the research. Now, in traditional Chinese medicine, they're working with organs, and if you're familiar with traditional Chinese medicine, you'll hear people talk about, and I will also talk about liver energy, heart energy, but I try to talk in terms of the elements because organs are outside my scope of practice, right? But the vagal nerve is going to give us interoceptive senses, and we are responding to them whether we're consciously aware of them or not. The vagal nerve goes to every organ in the body, and that's where our interoceptives come from. The vagal nerve, by the way, is 80% sensory, and 20% of it is motor. And what it does basically is interrupt fight or flight. So that's what it's doing with those organs. So interoceptive, the organs are outside our scope of practice, but because the body never lies, if you get a patient with a medical diagnosis that involves the organ systems, it's going to tell you exactly what treatment approaches to use. And that can be very helpful. The body never lies. So Dr. Liu that I studied with, he would say this: location, location, location. Where in the body, where's the body talking to you? And when the body talks to you, you can go from the material, which is the body, to the mind, which is the belief systems and thoughts, and then to the emotions. And if you can work with the emotions and the belief systems and the thoughts, you can change the body. And this is how they work. There's a, well, I'm looking at the slide, but I didn't show it to you, sorry. This guy here, has anybody taken any courses from Thomas Myers? He's in Walpole or somewhere, he's in Maine. And I stumbled across him. He has done work with looking at myofascial meridians and basically following most of the same meridian lines, so that there's one muscle and I don't know, 300 odd compartments, and the fascia is what links us to those things. So now let's see, we've got, I think I'm okay time wise. Let me just put my times in at some point. Let's see. Okay. If you're interested, I can walk you through kinematic chains. If you think about the meridians as kinematic chains, which for us makes more sense than thinking about them in the other ways. We're not, unless you're trained in acupuncture, you're probably not going to use acupuncture points, but you can find these kinematic chains. So I can, if you want to stand up and move around a little bit, I'll walk you through the five meridians. There's actually more than that, but I'm going to walk you through the main five. So I take off my coat. And I don't know if they can see me. I can't see here, but okay. So when we talk about anatomical position, we talk about with the hands down. In traditional Chinese medicine, their anatomical position is this. Okay, so we're going to start with metal. Okay, we're going to start with the long meridian, goes all the way down to the thumb. And then the large intestine or colon comes from the index finger all the way down through the neck, up across the face. All of these meridians go in the face. I'm not going to do that. And the same thing here. We go up the long and down the large intestine. Okay, then we're going to go to the heart. Oh, across here. Then we're going to go to the heart meridian, starts here, goes up to the little finger and down. The small intestine comes down and up the back of the head. Same thing on the other side, up the little finger for the heart and down to the small intestine. Then we go to the bladder. Okay. Okay. The bladder is we're going to catch that right up on the edge of the eyebrow, and we're going to go down the back of the neck, pick it up down here. It's going to go to the right behind the buttocks, the knees, the heel, up through the arch of the foot, up the inside of the leg, all the way up the inside of the leg, up through the genital area and up to here. Okay. Then we move from the bladder. Let's see. Did we do the stomach? Okay, I missed that one. Let's go to the stomach. I'm taking them a little out of order, but that's okay. The stomach comes from here. It goes down. Okay, down through the middle of the breast, down, all the way down to the middle toe and back up the inside of the leg. So the stomach goes down, but the spleen comes up. Okay, the spleen comes up to here. And then we have the last one, the liver. We're gonna pick that up on the edge of the eye here, go down the shoulder. Okay, and actually this is the gallbladder because it goes down energy. It goes down both sides of the legs. On the outside lateral portion of the leg comes up. Actually in between the big toe and the little toe is a really important acupressure point. And then you go up the inside of the leg and into the liver area. So those are you can sit down now. Those are the meridians, the major meridians. So if you've got somebody who's got I've now forgotten all my, you've got somebody who's got problems here, okay, problems with these muscles, that's going to tell you already what's going on with their social relationships. Is there something happening? Maybe, you're going to talk about it during therapy. I actually had a physical therapist in one of the lectures who came up to me and she said, it's so true. And my patients are tight and their tendons are tight and they're just really tight. They have anger issues. And she said, but I'm going to work with them. I'm going to talk to them about their anger issues and all that stuff while I'm working with them. But how do I bill for that? I said, don't bill for that. Bill for stretching. Bill for stretching. It's the same frequency. Each one of these elements is like frequencies on a radio dial or channels in a television station, channels on a television. Okay. It's, they all have a commonality. And when you talk about quantum entanglement, you talk about how these things, even though they're not physically touching, can still work together. So now, so that was this one. Then there's this handout you'll be able to get which sort of shows you in color where the meridians are. So when you've got people who have pain in certain areas, it's going to tell you maybe what kinds of unresolved emotional issues. So we're OTs, right? We don't just do phys dis, we don't just do psych. And the same thing, if you've got somebody with various emotional issues, you know exactly what kind of other activities you might want to do with them. And we pull all this stuff together anyway, so why not have a roadmap? And this is our roadmap. So when we're using the Healing Compass checklist, which is here, and I'm going to really zip through this pretty fast too. But I just wanted to have people that could take a look at it later and see. So when we use this, so you've got along here are the elements, wood, let's see, wood, water, earth, and metal, and fire is on the next page. And it's also, so that would be play, sleep, eating, working, and loving. So those are those areas, the occupations, okay? Then this column down here is the kinds of things that we would evaluate when we're working with a patient. And in the middle, this is what we want to see, okay? This means we're in balance. You're never in balance all the time. If you're in balance all the time, you're flatline, okay? And we all know what that means, okay? So there's always up and down, okay? That's always going to happen. And I keep trying to work with underregulated and overregulated, and I'm not going to use those words anymore. But on this side, we've got what would be called yin properties in traditional Chinese medicine. That's where you're either deficient or stuck. You're not moving, okay? Because that's what yin properties are like. Yang properties is when you're moving too much and getting too diffuse or completely out of control and erratic, okay? So that's what we're going to see here. And that's what we're going to be looking at in an evaluation. So we've got, this is where I'm going to take out the overregulated and just talk about the stuckness and deficiency, because that's what happens. And stagnation is the stuckness. So sometimes you'll hear people in traditional Chinese medicine talk about damp heat. That's what they're talking about, right? You take all that cold stuff, you put it in your compost pile. If everything goes right, you get heat, okay? In your compost pile, that's great. In your joints, not so much, right? Or other parts of your body. So we want to get that moving. We want to get that, cooking or moving if you want. We want to nurture and motivate that stuff. So when we've got things that are too stuck, like clay, like clay would be earth, that's really stuck. Seeds are stuck, wood energy, but all you have to do is put a little water on them, a little sunshine, and all of a sudden you've got wood energy, okay? And so all of these interact with each other as well. Water that's stuck is ice, okay? And it has some great benefits if you're living in a lake like a fish, and then, you still can swim around and everything. And the ice provides a certain amount of insulation, actually. So, and then the crystals are the most dense form of metal energy. And the sun is, of course, a constant and probably the most dense, condensed form of fire energy. So thinking in terms of metaphors and thinking of these elements and learning about nature and that kind of stuff can really help us begin to imagine and see things in a different way. So the yang aspects is the excess, erratic, and these are sort of diffuse, but you could also think of water as floods, wood energy as if it's too yang, it's going to be invasive species, various kinds. The metal energy, even thinking like in a bomb. So we've taken those bonds and you've split them. What are you going to get? You're going to get that kind of explosive energy. And fire, forest fires, earthquakes, those kinds of things, where the things are not behaving, they're behaving erratically. So that's an excess, okay? The balance is somewhere between the two, And that's what we want to do. We want to see harmony and balance. So as Stephen Cowan talked about, everyone has a secret power. Those of you who have seen Kung Fu Panda, these are the elements, these are the Furious Five. And this is where they fall on the traditional Chinese medicine compass. So it's another way to sort of get a sense of how these operate when they are in balance, because that's what they are. They're in balance. But you see them in the movie, you'll see them in the course of the movie sort of slide out and do things. And then of course, there's the panda who's completely outside the whole thing. And then, so if you haven't already been confused enough and complicated enough, I'm going to take it another step. Now, not only do they all fall in a compass like that, but they also have relationships to each other. So the relationships are this: water nourishes wood. So water is the mother of wood. We talk in terms of mother relationships, our parent relationships. Water nourishes wood, wood nourishes fire, builds a fire. Fire, when it burns down to ashes, creates earth. Earth hides metal, and metal turns into water. I know that's a little mystery figure that every now and then I look at things and I think, oh, okay, that's how that works. But anyhow, that's that. Then we also have what they call oppositional sometimes, but it's not really oppositional. It's kind of like your best friend and your mother are going to give you different kind of advice, right? And sometimes you should take your mom's advice, and sometimes your best friend is actually going to give you better advice than your mom, you know. And the same thing might be true about a grandmother or grandfather. You know, they are like, you know, they watch their mistakes grow up, and now they're like going to tell you something a little bit different than they may have told their own children. So you got an out of control ADHD kid. What are you going to do? You're going to give them structure, right? Metal is going to help them with that. You've got, so wood is actually, the roots of wood hold more earth together, keep earth in place. Earth will dam water, stop the excess of water, and water will put out a fire, and a fire will melt metal. So these all interact together. I have a lot of fun with this and thinking about it, and I'm willing at this point, if somebody wants to talk about a client and see how they would fit into this, I am willing to do that if somebody wants to play along with that. We've got about 10 more minutes, but people can stay longer if they want, or we can take some questions. I'm going to tell you one thing. This is somebody telling me a story the other day about somebody that somebody in their family, they went to a wedding. Their brother had gallbladder problems and was ignoring it because he wanted to go to the wedding. And then he'd also volunteered to take their mom back to Arizona. And, you know, and she said, do you have any, you know, plan B? And he's like, no, there's no plan B. So he took her to Arizona and he came back, and then he went to the emergency room. So this is gallbladder here, right? It's pushing. He's making decisions. He's running the show. He's not going to take help from anyone, right? His kidneys shut down because the mother always has to feed the child. So here's this gallbladder out of control vine taking over the world, and the kidneys have given everything they've got. And by the way, he's having trouble eating. All of those things come together. And this is when you start looking at it in this way, you start seeing these interrelationships. So let's say they came to you. What are you going to do? Well, you're going to have them help them with their sleep because their sleep's disturbed, right? So you're going to help them with their sleep because that's going to help the kidney problem. Are you going to get them maybe doing some recreational stuff? Like maybe, you know, dude, just back up a little bit. Let's try something, you know, like a card game or something that doesn't require, you know, that kind of push, or, you know, and what kinds of things are you eating? Are you eating with people? Or are you eating by yourself all the time? Maybe you need to eat with people because then you're going to get that nourishment here. Okay, so that was like quick and dirty. And I got time for questions. No questions?
I just had, so many kids I could think of. I work with kids. So I
Right.
work in a program in our school that is specifically geared towards kids with behavior challenges, which usually have trauma involved.
Oh, almost always.
ADHD, Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So a whole gamut of things. And these are the kids who can go from 0 to 90 in about 3 seconds. And you don't always know what the trigger is. Often sleep is not good. And so I go to those things.
This is
They're
trauma.
eating
This
a
is
lot
where
of
trauma
junk
is.
food.
This
Right.
is where trauma is, fear and shame, trauma, boom. That automatically, as long as you've got that, you go right there. And by the way, the water meridians are where the virus comes through too. So sleep is really, really important. So what else is going on though? They're 0 to 90. Okay. This is 0 to 90. The wood, that's wood energy. But there's no water to feed it. So it gets crazier and crazier and crazier. So what are we gonna do to feed the water? What are we gonna do to help water? So one of the things is eating or heavy work. Heavy work's gonna work on those muscles, strengthening kinds of stuff, cooking. Anything in here is gonna help with that. How do we work with that trauma? What else? Structure, mental structure. So we're gonna help them get a structure, gonna put them, get them, or help them get on some kind of a sleep schedule. And it may involve doing some heavy work here, these two things going in here. All right, and also, their relationships. This is because the water's where the problem is. That means the relationships are going to be problematic and the energy control is going to be problematic. Okay, but we're going to feed with food. What kinds of foods are calming? What kinds of foods are nurturing? What kinds of foods? These oftentimes become binge eaters,
Right.
or
Or just-
any other kinds of addictions, because we're trying to, do something with that, work with that trauma. But again, working with the trauma, working with the fears, working with shame, those kinds of things, if that's in your toolbox, or if you're working with psychotherapists where it is in their toolbox, it should be in their toolbox. And also the structure. Structure can be really, really important. And having meaningful work can be important. Doing something that's really helpful to somebody, not just busy work, but something that's really helpful to somebody. Or, oh, you do this really well. You have a skill. Will you share that? And I worked with a wonderful therapist in the school district in Tucson, and she was from England. And in England, they didn't throw crafts out the way we did in this country. So she would, we each get our paltry $50, from the district, and she would spend it all on Oriental Trading Company, like all of it. She and every, she was doing all these crafts. She would take her kids that she was working with out of the classroom and teach them the craft, and then they would go in, and he or she would help her teach the rest of the class because they'd already learned it. So she, that was, one of the things that she did with some of her kids that was really beneficial. Again, working with that kind of paradigm. Does anybody else have any questions?
Small question, why
Sure.
are you trying to get away from over-regulation?
Under regulation, just because I think it's a little confusing with that, if you'll actually see on this, I changed a few things around on this. Because I continually, I've worked with this for a number of years and I continually keep getting stuck on that. And I realized that under regulation, over regulation is, but I think it tends to be under regulated, are the ones that tend to be like that. And the over regulated, I don't know that they're regulated. They're not regulated at all. So it's like which one's under regulated and which one's over regulated. I keep flipping back and forth. It's like, so I just decided today, I was just thinking, why am I even using those words? Why don't I just talk about motivation and channeling, so if we've got too much, you've got too much yang energy, too much, and it's erratic, we need to channel it and we need to soothe. Okay. So for instance, you've probably got with the child with the trauma, you've probably got deficiency here, right? So we're going to nurture and motivate. Okay, because we're stuck. Or we're deficient, actually. We're going to nurture and motivate. If we were stuck, we'd be more into motivation, but nurturing is going to be really important with that. But from in here, I don't know what that beeper is. If from here, we're going to, and you've got here, right? You've got erratic yang energy, right? So what are we going to do with that? We're going to channel that energy and we're going to soothe it. So what's going to soothe it? That earth, eating is going to soothe, and metal is going to channel. Does that kind of make sense? Any other questions? It is.
What your book is.
This is what the book is.
Are
What the
there
book is.
other practical examples of patients that you've worked with where you recognize the deficiencies and then what treatment strategy was?
Unfortunately, I kind of learned this after the fact, but yeah, I mean, but if I think about a particular patient, I do sometimes now see clients and I do some teaching with people in workshops. And if you're interested, come up and give me your email. If you're interested in learning more about this or exploring it in more depth, I'm happy to do that. Let me see. I think I wrote something up for one of the Gil Hoffner's books back in the day. So I had a little boy who came in. I had a play-based clinic in Tucson. We had 2-hour sessions and he was in the preschool group. He was 4 years old and he was diagnosed as cortically blind. And he came in to our clinic. This is before I was really using this model, but I've been doing compasses forever, so various kinds. Anyhow, he came into our clinic and the evaluation was me and the other therapist looking at him do this on the floor. That's all he did. So we rolled him over on his tummy. He didn't have enough strength to lift his head and turn it. Okay. So he came and we had other kids who were much more active, but when he came, one of us was working on him all the time using every neuromuscular facilitation technique that we could. And he came weekly for 9 months. His mom said he began to vocalize on the way to the clinic when he would come on the days that he was working, that we saw him. And he, by the time he left, I could get him to sit astride one of those, that's the light. I could get him to sit astride one of those little things that you sit on and push with your feet. I mean, he wasn't pushing or anything, but he was sitting on it and he could sit upright with his hands like this. I had a picture of him. If he went 5 degrees in any direction, he was a full face plant. But he had learned this because he was always surrounded by other kids. And on the very last day before we had to close, because I didn't master billing, I didn't figure that out. But he reached out and touched another boy in the sandbox. Of course, it was the most hyperactive, tactilely defensive child that we had. And he turned around like this, and then he saw who it was, and he controlled it. We had 4 very strict rules based on the 4 elements, 4 very strict rules. Have fun, play safely, make friends, use your imagination. One of the little boys who came to us, he came, and we had, all these wonderful toys to play with in the evaluation. And and I said, do you want to come back? And he was like, oh yeah, I want to come back. I said, we have 4 very strict rules. He said, no kicking, no hitting, no fighting, no biting. because those are the 4 rules that got him kicked out. And I said, no, the first rule is have fun. And he was like, finally a rule I can follow, one I'm gonna succeed at. And the second rule is you need to play safely, and that means you need to listen to one of the therapists if if they tell you not to jump off the wall or whatever. Can you do that? He was lying. But his heart was in the right place. Can you make friends? Yes. Can you use your imagination? Yes. Oh, good. You'll be doing fine. So what we could do then when we had the kids, because they knew there were 4 very strict rules, is we could say, go up to a kid and say, is that a good way to make friends? And they'd be like, oh dear, okay. And they would correct. Or, are you playing safely? Because I thought I heard the other therapist tell you not to jump off that wall. And they would do the self-correction. So that was how we made the 4 very strict rules work for us. That's it. Those are my 2 examples. Pulled them out of the hat. I think we're a little over time here, a couple minutes, but I will be here if you've got more questions, if you want to look at the acupuncture doll, or if you want to look at the books, or if you want to give me, pick up my card and either give me your email address or I will.
And the handouts, so the handouts.
The handouts you can download off the internet. I didn't bring extra copies because I didn't.
Thank you.
You're welcome.